Good morning. Hope you have a wonderful day. We continue. We left off Pesachim 12a. On the top, second line. The first line. So he repeated what we learned yesterday. He repeated it for Rabbi. That the argument between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, two witnesses, they make a mistake, if they get the hours wrong, so when do we say that they really mean the same time? So Rabbi Meir says that the event happened basically the same time. When one witness says that it happened in the third hour, and one witness says it happened in the second hour, and the other says the third hour, what he means is it happened at the end of the second hour of the day. In other words, it happened, let's say, 8 o'clock, the end of the second hour. 6 o'clock is the first hour, and 7 o'clock starts the second hour. So he means the second hour, the end of the second hour. The other witness says the third hour, he means the beginning of the third hour. The third hour starts at 8 o'clock, so it's the exact same time. And Rabbi Yehuda says that they can make a mistake, a person can make a mistake in a half hour. So therefore, when one witness says the third hour, and the other one says the fifth hour, when did it actually happen? So it actually happened,
I'd say the end of the third hour.
It actually happened, he means the end of the third hour, he means, let's say 9 o'clock, the end of the third hour. When did it actually happen? 9:30. When he says the fifth hour, means the beginning of the fifth hour, which is 10 o'clock. So he's off by a half hour. It happened 9:30. He says 10. He means 9:30. He says 8, 9.
Each one a half hour.
Half hour difference. That's how Abaye explained the argument. Others say Abaye said that according to Rabbi Meir they could be off by a little. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it could be off by an hour. So when he says it happened in the second hour, he means the end of the second hour. It means close to 8 o'clock. And when he says, the other one says the third hour, he means the beginning of the third hour. And it happened, let's say, around 8, so each one was off a little. That's fine. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a person can be off by an hour. So when did it happen? When did the actual event happen that they both testify on? So either it happened, say, around 9 o'clock, the end of the third hour. Third hour starts at 8, 6, 7, 8. So let's say 9 o'clock. And when the other one says, when he says 3 means the third hour, he means the end of the third hour. And when the other one says 5, he means the beginning of the fifth hour. We get like 10 o'clock. So he's off by an hour and a drop. Or maybe it happened at 10 o'clock. And when he says 10, he means the beginning of 10. I mean, he says the fifth hour, he means the beginning of the fifth hour, 10 o'clock. But the other one said the third hour, meaning 8 o'clock, he meant the end of the third hour, which is 9 o'clock. So he's off by an hour. That's fine. So he repeated this explanation. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehuda, repeated this explanation to Rabbi. So Rabbi asked, if we would have asked them specifically, the Kamar Shalosh, when you say third hour, what are you talking about? Do you mean B'tchila Shalosh? Maybe he meant 8 o'clock. When he said the third hour, maybe he meant 8 o'clock. And when the guy says the 5th hour, the other witness said the 5th hour, maybe he meant at the end of the 5th hour, meaning 11 o'clock. Then the two witnesses are contradicting each other. He said it happened at 8 o'clock, and he says it happened 3 hours later.
Almost 11, right?
Yeah. And then you wouldn't kill the person based on their testimony. So we're going to interpret out of doubt. We're going to say, well, when he says 3, he means 9 o'clock, the end of the 3rd hour. When he said 5, he meant the beginning of the. Based on that, you're gonna kill a person. But the Torah says, you have to judge the community congregation has to judge this person, the defendant, and you're obligated to try to save his life. So why in the world would you assume that they meant that it happened around the same time, or just an hour off? Maybe on the contrary, maybe the discrepancy is 3 hours, and therefore the whole testimony is thrown out of court. And you can save a person's life. Why don't you just ask them, what do they mean? Rav has a different explanation. Of course we ask them what they mean. Of course we assume the worst. When he says 2, he means the beginning of the 2nd hour. 7 o'clock. When he says 3, he means the end of the 3rd hour. 9 o'clock. It's a 2-hour difference. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, he says 2 in the other way. When he says 3, another one says 5, he means the beginning of the 3rd hour, 8 o'clock, and he means the end of the 5th hour, 11 o'clock, a 3-hour difference. And this is the argument. A person can make a mistake 2 hours, he can be off by 2 hours. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a person could be off by 3 hours. He's a chassid. He's totally, either chassid is 2 hours, or he's a Sephardi and he's 3 hours off. The wedding is called for 8, and then no one even shows up before 11. Fine. See, you can be off. So even though he swears, he says no, it happened at 11, and the guy swears it happened at 8. We're saying they're talking about the same incident, the same time. He's just off. A person could be off by 2 hours. When did the actual incident happen? Either it happened at 7 o'clock, beginning of the 2nd hour, or it happened at 9 o'clock, the end of the 3rd hour. And one of them is off by a little close to 2 hours. We're not going to say that both of them made a mistake. Rather say one of them is off. One of them is totally off.
We're not going to say that they both made a mistake.
Right. One of them is off.
I mean, we're not going to give you a 4.5 hour
Exactly.
spread.
Exactly. I'm not going to say that both of them are off. And that's why according to Rabbi Meir, you're not going to say if one of them says 3 and one of them says the 3rd hour, one of them says the 5th hour, and even if he means the beginning of the 3rd hour, 8 o'clock, and he means the end of the 5th hour, 11 o'clock, so it's a 3-hour discrepancy. But why don't you say maybe it happened in the middle, and each one is only off an hour and a half?
Right.
No, to say that both of them made a mistake, Pesach says that you don't say. You say one of them is off, and they're talking about the same incident. So when did the incident happen? Either happened at 8 o'clock. So one of them got it right and the other one is precise, and the other one is off by 3 hours. A little less than 3 hours. So it happened at close to 11. And the one who said at the beginning of 3 is off 3 hours, a little, close to 3 hours. Dr. Gemara asked, now we learned in Sanhedrin, we used to interrogate the witnesses with 7 questions. And these were critical questions. Be'ezer Shavua, which year of the sabbatical year did it happen? Be'ezer Shana, which year? Which set of sabbatical years? Which year? Be'ezer Chodesh, which month? What day of the month? Be'ezer Yom, what day of the week? Be'ezer Shah, what time? Be'ezer Makom, where? Tanya, we learn about Ma ben Chakiris Libedikas.
Just to ask, I know it's. Imagine the guy says yesterday. He said, I don't know what cycle of a yovel we're in right now. Why is it like. So you wanted to go ask somebody and then come and say?
Okay, so why do you have to ask all these questions? The Gemara is going to say because the Gemara will explain in a minute why these questions were critical.
Could the guy go and ask somebody else, by the way, can you tell me what the date is today? And then figure out what the date. I don't know, let's say what year the Yovel were in, right? So you just want to go ask somebody else and then say?
You mean if he says
It happened yesterday. I know that, it was Monday. It's done. Okay.
No, but Ezer Shavua is like saying 5,781. Am I giving a year? I mean, did it happen in 1979? Did it happen?
Yesterday is pretty clear. Okay,
But for the record, give us a date. When did it happen? Tell us the year. Tell us. Be precise.
I guess it's the other way. You're committing to something from your side. You can't later say, I meant it for you. Okay.
Well, yesterday. When did you come? Here's for the record. We write it down. This is what you said. This set of 7 years, and this year, and this day, and this time. Fine. He says 12a. So he says, what's the difference? Ma ben chakiras lebedikis. But these were the critical questions, the central questions. Bedikis used to ask him hundreds of other questions, details. What is the difference between chakiras and bedikis? Chakiras, if one of the witnesses says, I don't know the answer, I don't remember which day of the week. Then it's thrown out of court. They do some betela. But like we discussed yesterday, the testimony of Professor Ford against Brett Kavanaugh. When did it happen? Where did it happen? I don't know. She didn't know anything. I don't know where. I don't know when. I don't know what date. I mean, that's like a joke. I mean, that's thrown out of court. How can you come testify a person without giving specific, detailed testimony?
Maybe he was blind.
So then it's not a testimony. Bedikas, but in the case of bedikas, like they asked him what suit was he wearing, what type of knife did he use, what was the make on it. If they don't know, I feel both of them say we don't know, we didn't pay attention. Who's paying attention to these details, minor details? We don't throw out the testimony. The difference is that if they contradict each other, even in the insignificant details, if this one says he was wearing a blue suit, another one says he was wearing a white suit, then we throw them out. Then we say they're not testifying about the same incident. We ask, why this distinction between chakiras and between bedikas? We said chakira is there, the testimony is thrown out because you can't contradict them. And the Torah says every testimony has to be a type of testimony that the person is committing. He's putting his life on the line. You could be refuted. And if you're found to be a liar, because two witnesses will come and say, how could you testify? You were with us at that time. We were partying, we were skiing, we were out of the country. How in the world could you testify that you saw what happened and you lose your life? If you try to take someone else's life, you're going to lose your life.
You get the same punishment.
Right.
Yeah.
So only a person who's putting his life on the line, who's committing, he's like not only under perjury, he'll personally get the penalty. So if a person doesn't give any dates, and it's very slippery, you can't contradict him. You'll say, well, okay, I made a mistake. It wasn't this day, it wasn't that day. You have to be very specific and very precise. Bedikas, but if they don't tell us if it was a white suit or not a white suit, it doesn't matter. Even if he doesn't know, you still have enough information that you could find them to be liars, to find them to be untruthful with this. If you're going to say, but if you're going to tell me that a person could make a mistake in the hours, 2 hours off, it could be 2 hours, according to them, because it could be 3 hours off. What's the point? How could this be included in the seven interrogations, chakiras, which you must ask, because you're nailing it down. You're not nailing down anything. If he says 10 o'clock, and then two witnesses are going to come and say, how could you tell 10 o'clock? We had a breakfast meeting. You weren't even there. Oh, well, 10 o'clock, maybe I was off by 3 hours. Maybe it really happened at 1. I'm not paying attention. So what's the point of asking him what time it happened? If anyway, you can't hold him to it. The Amri will say, mitte katoinen, I made a mistake. And the Gemara, the Yavin like called this, no, we still want the hour. And yes, we'll give him the flexibility. If two witnesses come and say, the Rabbi Meir will give him from, if he says the second hour. So even if two witnesses come and say, how could you say at 7 o'clock you saw this happen, you were with us? We'll give him the flexibility. Say, you know what, it happened 6 o'clock. And when it really happened at 6 o'clock, fine. We'll say 6 o'clock. Only give him 1 hour backwards. The Gemara will explain why only 1 hour backwards. We'll give him 2 hours forward. So when he says the second hour, so we give him the second hour, and we give him the third hour. The other witness who said the third hour, we can say he meant the end of the third hour, 9 o'clock, and we'll give him 2 hours forward, up until 11 o'clock. So you're right. Those hours, they cannot be contradicted. Those hours, we give each one 2 hour window, either way, backward, forward. Maybe he meant the end of the third hour.
Not like Tosis, we're giving him almost 4 hours.
No, each witness separately. So we give. Maybe he meant the end of the second hour, which is 8 o'clock, and from there we give him 2 hours till 10 o'clock.
Each one.
Right, each one gets to. Really, we should give him even an hour before at the last hour of the night. You have to give him. Maybe he meant the second hour. He meant 7 o'clock, and give him 2 hours. Maybe he's off. It happened 5 at night, the last hour of the night. Yet we say no. We only give him till 6 a.m. till dawn, till sunrise. Ella ben yemama l'leila l'toyin. But a person doesn't make a mistake between night and day. There we don't give him, there's no flexibility. You can't say, well, maybe he made a mistake. No, you can't be off. If it happened at night, you're not going to say 7 a.m. in the morning. If it happened 5 o'clock at night, the last hour of the night, when it's dark, it's pitch black, and now you're telling me that you made a mistake and you thought it happened 7 a.m. No, that we don't say. All Rabbi Yehuda is according to Meir. According to Rabbi Yehuda, we give actually 3 hours. Rabbi Yehuda is from 6 a.m. till 12 p.m. Because when he says the third hour, yeah, okay. Maybe he means the beginning of 8 o'clock. And we give him 2 hours backwards. Really, we should give him an extra hour, but fine, because the same reasoning, we're only going to give him 1 hour. 2 hours. Up until sunrise, up until dawn. Or we give him 3 hours forward. Maybe he meant maybe it was 9 o'clock. So you have up until noon. The other witness who says 5, also we give him 3 hours in front, but only up until noon going forward. And I'll explain why in a minute. Why you only give him 1 hour going forward? You should give him another 2 hours till 2 in the afternoon. Maybe it means at the end of the 5th hour, 11 o'clock, so give him till 2 in the afternoon. Why you only give him till 12 noon? So he explains. So within the Nesele may cut it tvei. Really, you should give him. You should give him an extra. You should give him even into the nighttime. A person is not going to confuse the night with the day. So we can't give him, say that maybe he made a mistake. If the incident happened at night, we're not going to say that he made a mistake. He said 8 o'clock. He said 9 o'clock, and really 8 o'clock, and really he means 5 at night. No, that a person cannot make such a mistake. Why do you stop at 12 noon? Maybe he means the end of the 5th hour. Maybe he means 11 o'clock. Give him till 2 p.m., 2 in the afternoon. Why do you only give him till noon? Ella, because shebehei chama b'mizrach. At the 5th hour, 11 o'clock, the 5th hour, when he says the 5th hour, the sun is in the east. Right? The sun travels. It rises in the east and sets in the west. So it rises like an arch. It rises and then it sets in the west. Ubezayin, and on the 7th hour, Chama b'maydav, at noon, the sun tilts to the west.
So 1 o'clock, it's already
Right.
on the opposite side of the sun.
Right, so you can't make a mistake. How can you make a mistake? The sun is on this side and the other side is this side. It's it's easily detectable. Okay. That's how Rabbi explains the argument. Now we get back to our Mishnah. Now we learn our Mishnah. Meir says, Eichlin kol hey, you're allowed to eat till 11 o'clock. Let's say from the Hills Vav, you burn the chametz starting at 11 o'clock. Rabbi says, no, Eichlin kol dal, you could only eat till 10 a.m. B'toilin kol hey, and from 10 to 11, you just suspend it. You don't eat. You're allowed to benefit. You can feed your animal, but you don't have to burn it either. Say from the Hills Vav, and you burn it starting at 11. Again, the reason we burned it earlier is because the Rishonim say we should also nullify it again. In order to nullify it again, you must do it before 11 o'clock. So we have to we burn it earlier. We finish the burning by 11 o'clock. But according to halacha, really, the burning really begins at 11 o'clock.
But everyone agrees.
Yeah. So the question is, according to Rabbi Meir, the Amar, he says, that a person doesn't you don't confuse times. And the reason why the two witnesses are kosher, when one says it happened at the second hour, starting at 7, and the other one says it happened in the third hour, starting at 8, because he means the end of the second hour, 8 o'clock, and the other one means the beginning of the third hour, 8 o'clock. But a person doesn't make any mistake. That's how Abaye learned. Or second version, a little off. So why? According to that, necha kulashit. So what's the problem? You should eat. You should be able to eat up until 12 o'clock. There's no problem. A person doesn't confuse the times. A person is a yeki. He knows exactly down to the minute. He knows exactly what time it is, down to the second. The yeki tells his wife he's going to be late after Maida because they're switching from the same bracha to the same Talmud Matar. We'll take a switch. I think
December 6th.
Yeah,
Right? It's 5th. 4th.
Fourth.
No, that's
Tomorrow? When do we switch? Tonight? Look at the calendar. Look at our Shabbos. Let's say Shabbos. Okay.
Friday night, no?
Let's say Shabbos. Okay. So a person doesn't confuse. If you don't confuse, why can't you eat it? I can eat it up until 12. The prohibition is starting at 12. Why shouldn't I be able to eat it according to the Meir? The other version of Rabbi, who says according to the Meir, a person is off by a little. You can get it a little wrong, a minute here, a minute there. Nechel, you should eat that safe shit. You should tell him, okay, stop eating 11:55. What's the problem? You're not going to confuse it. You're not going to come to eat after the Torah says you're not allowed to eat it, afternoon. I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. In Abaye, the way he explains Rabbi Yehuda, a person only confuses a half hour. Nechel at Palga the shit. You should be able to eat till 11:30. According to this version, an hour off. You should be able to eat until 11 o'clock, till the end of a little before 11, 10:55, 10:59. Abaye will explain the difference. Eidus Mesurah L'Zerizim. Who comes to testify? A person who's he's paying attention, he's careful, he's looking at his watch, he's noticing what's going on. Chametz, Lakel Masr. Everyone is responsible for chametz. Everyone has to search his house. So you can't say that every person is careful about time. A person is coming to testify in court, takes a responsibility, and is making sure to be precise, to watch when it happened, what time it happened. So then you say a person will not make a mistake. He won't confuse it. An incident that happened at 8 o'clock, he's not going to say it happened 6 o'clock. He's very. But a person chametz, we are worried that maybe he's going to confuse the times. And if you allow him to eat up until 12, he'll eat even past 12. So therefore, according to the Meir, you have to stop eating at 11. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no, you have to stop eating even earlier at 10. Now, according to Rabbi, who explains Rabbi, according to Rabbi, he says a person could be off by 2 hours. That's how Rabbi explains Rabbi's opinion. So a person could be, because we ask him, when you said the second hour, he explains. You ask him, and we assume it could be he means the beginning of the second hour, 7 o'clock. When the other one says the third hour, we ask him, or we assume, for the benefit of the defendant, that he means the maximum. He means the end of the third hour. And nevertheless, we say a person can be off by 2 hours. The two witnesses are testifying in the same incident. So according to that, according to Rabbi Meir, you should stop eating at 10 a.m. Why does our mission say, according to Rabbi Meir, you can go eat up until 11? You only have to stop eating an hour before the time. So the Gemara answers, hey, chama b'mizrach v'zayin chama b'mayrev. Because there's a difference. Yes, the sun goes in an arch, right, from east to west. But the difference is that the sun is tilted. Before noon, the sun is tilted on the northern side. At noontime, the sun tilts, it's on the south side. The person is standing here, so before noon, the sun goes like in an arch, in a circle. So before noon, it's tilting on the north side. After noon, it starts tilting on the south side. It starts in the west. In the middle of the day, it's on top, and then it starts going down to the east, but tilted to the south.
Not the other way around, starts from the east goes to the west.
No, north. I'm sorry. Starts in the east, and then starts in the east, and then goes to the west.
But
it's tilted to the
when we say
south.
it's 7 o'clock, 7th hour means 12:01.
12. Yeah. 7th hour starts at 12. Yeah.
12:01.
12 o'clock, yes. At 12, it starts tilting, yeah. So therefore, a person is not going to confuse, according to Meir, it's not going to confuse, you're not going to mistake and think that 10 o'clock, that 12 o'clock is 10 a.m. and I'm allowed to eat. No, 10 a.m. the sun was in the north. At 12 noon, the sun is in the south. Tilted to the south, so therefore you can't confuse it. Frankly, if that's the case, you should even be allowed to eat at 11 o'clock. If that's the case, I should be able to eat up until 12 because I can't confuse the two, right? Because here the sun is in the north, and now after 12 it's in the south. It's tilted to the south. At the 11 o'clock, he says the sun. He says 11 o'clock. He says
There's a point where the sun is equidistant.
In the middle of the sky.
Where it's either one or the other.
So
the sun is right overhead.
It's like in the middle of the sky, right in the middle. It's hard to tell if it's
this
north
way
or south.
Way,
right.
It's over. Yeah.
Before that, it's clear.
Right.
After that, it tilts the other way.
Yeah. That's the 6th hour. That's the 6th hour. Yes.
But the 6th hour, the 6th hour, it's hard to tell. And that's why he says you're not allowed to eat from 11 o'clock. Okay.
Sort of like Banish mushes, right? You don't know.
Now, according to Rav's explanation, Rabbi Huda, when he said 3 hours, he meant the beginning of the third hour, 8 o'clock. When the other one said for 5th hour, we ask him, or we assume for the sake of the defendant, we assume that he means the maximum. He means the end of the 5th hour, 11 o'clock. The 3 hour difference. And nevertheless, we say that the two witnesses are kosher because they're both talking about the same thing. One of them could be off by 3 hours. So according to that, you should stop eating at 9 a.m. Because it could be off by 3 hours from 9 to 12.
Stop right there.
And for the Gemara, hey, chama b'mizrach. The 5th hour, the sun is in the east. The Sheva and the 12 noon, no, at 10 o'clock, the sun is in the east. And 12 noon, the sun is in the west. The Kol Shkin Dalet, how much more so? 9 o'clock, the sun is in the east. So there's no way you're going to make a mistake and think that 9 o'clock, that 12 o'clock is 9. I'm never going to confuse 12 with 9. I won't confuse 12 o'clock with 10 either. Because at 10 a.m. the sun is in the east, and at 12 noon the sun is in the west.
So they could eat it at 11, huh?
Abaye answered, he answered, Eidus Masudal Izrizim Chamas Lakel Masim. Witnesses are sharp. Witnesses,
Right, they're
they're
vigilant.
off. They can right. Eidos Masur Legalizism. Chametz Lakel Maser. One
So in other
second.
words, we're not willing to give such a, anything that's a little bit close, we're going to be careful of, even though really it is very different.
So witnesses won't make a mistake between noon
There's
and
enough
10.
of a distinction.
But a regular person would make a mistake. He's not so
So
sharp,
the
not
rabbis
so
had to
clever.
be stringent for them, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The sun is in the east, the sun is in the west.
Right, no. The rabbis had to lay down the law, yeah.
One second, but that's the case. So then, but 9 o'clock, even a person, 3 hours, even a lay person will not make such a mistake. 9 o'clock, the sun is clearly much further in the east. So then, even a lay person would not make such a gross mistake. 2 hours, yes, possible. But Rabbi gives a different explanation. Then Rabbi says, "Lav hainu time with Rabbi Yehuda." This is not the reason of Rabbi Yehuda. Nothing to do with. That's not the reason of Rabbi Yehuda, because a person cannot make a mistake in the 5th hour and the 7th, like we explained, because the sun is in the east, the sun is in the west. Even a lay person would not make such a mistake. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? They have to stop eating at 10 o'clock. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds you have to burn the chametz. The only way to get rid of the chametz is by burning the chametz. So you need an hour to collect the wood. So therefore, if you stop eating at 10, you realize, hey, why am I not eating? Because it's Pesach, and an hour after burn the chametz. So you're going to spend from 10 to 11 gathering the wood to burn the chametz at 11. Ravina asked the Rabbi Yehuda says, hey, Masai, when do we say Ein bir chametz al sreifa, that you have to burn? The only way to get rid of the chametz is by burning it. Not at the time of when you're obligated to burn. When you burn it before the time. But if you burn it at the right time, Rashi says if you burn it at 12 o'clock, when the Torah tells you to get rid of the chametz, then I don't care how you get rid of it. If you get rid of it before the time, then you have to do it only by fire. So the question here is, so why don't you let him eat? What do you care? So he won't gather wood. Who cares? Let him eat, and then at 12 o'clock he'll burn it. Either way, yes, 11 o'clock he won't have wood to burn. So fine, so he won't burn it at 11, he'll burn it at 12, and he'll burn it any way possible without wood. Taisus says, wait a minute, the rabbis say you have to burn it at 11. What do you mean? And so Taisus has a whole different explanation. Taisus knows the exact opposite. If you're burning it at the right time, then you must burn it. Ein bir chametz el esreif.
If you burn it after.
Right.
the Zman.
But if you burn it before the Zman,
Whatever you want.
then I don't care how I burn it. So if you were burning it biblically, the way you're supposed to burn it, 12 o'clock, then you must be by fire.
Makes more sense.
Right. It makes more sense. But if you're burning it at 11, you're burning it earlier, I'm not fulfilling a mitzvah.
Another option is
When you're doing it at 12, you're doing a mitzvah.
Instead of not burning it, means like you're crumbling.
Yeah, crumble it. Yeah, exactly. Whatever it is.
Wait a second.
I'm doing a mitzvah. Torah says Tashmisu. You have to burn it. Now it's usher. You have to burn it. The only way to get rid of it is burning it. If I'm getting rid of
You
it,
need an hour.
yeah. So what do you need an hour? What do I need to collect wood? You can 11 o'clock. I don't have to burn it. Even if I can get rid of it anyway. So who cares if you don't have wood? Let him eat till 11 o'clock. He forgot to collect wood. Who cares?
With modern plumbing, can we grind it up and flush it? Review fine like this and then flush it?
That's what you do on Shabbos. If Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, that's how you get rid of the extra. Right, you can't burn it. You flush it down the toilet. Yeah, absolutely. So now, Taisa says also, where does Rabbi Yehuda learn Ein Bir Chametz al Sefer from Noiser? Just like you have to burn the leftover of the carbon. When does the Torah tell you to burn the leftover of the carbon? After it's left over, after it's aser.
Yeah.
So when does the Torah tell you to burn? After the time that it becomes prohibited. That time, that's when you have to burn, not earlier. So the Gemara answers, Ella Maravas, Rabbi says, you're right. That's not the reason to collect wood. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda says you have to stop eating at 10, it'll be a cloudy day. It'll be a cloudy day, and you won't realize, you'll think that it's 12, you think it's 10, and really it's a 12. because you can't see the sun. You're going by the sun. The sun is in the east, the sun is in the west.
Now the problem is
North,
saying you're
south,
not
I
gonna
can't see anything. It's a cloudy day, it's raining.
Now that triggers all our previous questions.
Yeah. In fact, but if that's the case, I should stop eating. So according to Rabbi Huda, you can be off by 3 hours. You stop eating at 9. And Papa answers no. Yes, because of a cloudy day, but only 10, only 2 hours. Why? Because Dalad's man sudala kaili. Everyone eats breakfast at 9 o'clock. And everyone is eating chametz. Everyone's eating breakfast. So I'm not worried that I'm going to think 12 o'clock is 9. Nobody eats at 12 o'clock. Everyone eats at 9. So I'm not going to confuse the hours. So, and here we're talking about eating chametz. You're worried about eating chametz. So eating, I'm not going to sit down at a meal, have breakfast at 12 o'clock. I know that everyone, when I see nobody is eating, everyone ate already at 9. 9 o'clock, that's the time to eat. So I'm not going to confuse 9. But between 10 and 12, I could confuse. If I'm not eating at a time when everyone is eating, you may think it's 10 and really it's 12 because it's a cloudy day. And now he's going to talk about that. The Tana Rabban, the rabbis learn, just another few minutes, Tana Rabban, the rabbis learn, Shari Sheina Maichaludim. Shari Sheina Maichaludim. The first hour, who eats the first hour? Ludim. Ludim are cannibals, mentioned for us. Cannibal, they eat 6 a.m. Shliya, the second hour, Michaelistim. Because they also eat, they don't care, they eat right away, but they were busy all night stealing and robbing. So they're a little late. They're a little late to the party. They wake up at the second hour, 7 a.m., they're already up and eating. Shlish is Michael Yershim. The inheritance babies, what do they call them? The
Trust fund babies?
The trust fund babies. Trust fund babies don't have to work. They're up already at 8 o'clock. They're having a full meal, no problem. Especially they have a cook and a butler to cook it for them, prepare for them. The Vias, the 4th hour, Michael Palin, the workers. They have to go to work. On the boss's dime, they have to get to work. So they eat at 9 o'clock. Chamish is Michael Tamid Chachamim. 10 o'clock, the Torah scholars eat. Shish is 11 o'clock, Michael Klot. That's when everyone eats breakfast. Papa says, you just told us at 9 o'clock everyone eats breakfast. Say the exact opposite. Revi is Michael Klot. 9 o'clock everyone eats breakfast. Chamish is Michael Pelem. The 5th hour, the workers' week. They can't eat on the boss's dime, so they have to wait till 10 o'clock. Shish is Michael Tamid Chacham.
What do you mean?
11 o'clock.
And then when they win that hour, then it's not on his dime, or meaning they're just giving...
No, they're busy. They're busy. They have to start working for they're busy with the work, with the boss. Maybe they're helping serve him his breakfast. They're busy with the boss, and then 10 o'clock he gives them time to eat, and 11 o'clock is Michael Tamid Chacham. Al Rebbe explains in Tanya, chapter 27. What's the point? In other words, the Chachamim used to hunger, used to starve themselves every morning, not eat before 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
What's the point? They're not saving any time for learning Torah. What's the difference if I eat breakfast like any normal person at 9 o'clock? I'm going to eat breakfast later. What's the difference? I'm not saving any time, so why not eat normal? They used to fast for 2 hours every morning. They used to starve themselves 2 hours. Because this is the sign of a Talmud Chacham, impulse control. They had impulse control.
Eat for pleasure.
Right, not eat for pleasure. Impulse control. That's why what happened in this week's, this Chumash of today, they were so disgusted when he raped Dinah. This is a person who has no impulse control. Whatever he likes, he just grabs and takes and lusts and he does. This is the whole opposite, the whole essence of Judaism is impulse control. And they used to feel hunger. People today in America forgot what hunger means, but hunger in a healthy sense. Don't eat because you're constantly craving to eat. Junk food, junk lifestyle, constant craving, constant lust, constant garbage lifestyle, garbage food. To be a person, to be a Talmud Chacham, you have to call it skafia, you have to impulse control. You don't just do whatever you want. You want to eat, you're hungry, fine. So if you figure it out, everyone today is into intermittent fasting. The rabbis had intermittent fasting every day, 16 hours, because you have your meal at night, 6 o'clock, and it gets dark, right? We learned the beginning of Tractate Brachas, that's when a person has their meal, more or less around that time. And their next meal was 16 hours later. 11 o'clock, 11 a.m. Breakfast. Every day they had impulse control. You don't just eat. I want to eat and constant eating non-stop. So that's the sign of a Talmud Chacham. If you eat after this time, after 11 o'clock, in those afternoon, if that's your first meal, it's like you're throwing wine you're throwing a stone into a thing that holds wine, and into a bag of wine. So even though it appears as if you have more wine, you really don't, because you just had a stone. There's no wine there. So you're filling yourself, but it's not doing anything for you. It's not nourishing you. The body needs nourishment, so you have to eat a meal before noon. That's only if you didn't taste anything in the morning. If you tasted something in the morning, then even if your first main meal is afternoon, that's fine. Listen. But nevertheless, it's better to have your meal before noon. Ravashi says, just like there's an argument by in the case of the witnesses, so too it's an argument by chametz. The same argument would be by chametz. That just like Rabbi Yehuda says that they make a bigger mistake in time, so too Rabbi Yehuda also. He says you have to stop eating at 10. And Meir says, no, you only make the mistake could only be a smaller time. So also by chametz, it says you only off an hour. You're allowed to eat up until 11 o'clock. Pshita, obviously. That's what we just said. It says, Hakam Mashmalah, this is what it's coming to teach us, Shinuya, the Shanin and Shinuya. That the answers that we gave is correct. You shouldn't say Tanoi. Don't say that maybe there's two opinions in Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe there's an argument what Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda said. So you'll say, just like over here, Rabbi Meir says a person is only off by an hour, and Rabbi Yehuda says a person is off by 2 hours. So you'll say, in the case of witnesses also, it's the same thing. They could only be off by 1 hour and be off by 2 hours. So we say, no. According to Rabbi Meir, they could be off by 2 hours. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they could be off by 3 hours. And here it's different. The case of chametz is different, like we just explained all these explanations. Because either it's reason, or because here people eat breakfast at 9, or a cloudy day, only till, okay. And now the last piece. A person could only make a mistake in hours. Witnesses can make a mistake in hours. If one witness says it happened before sunrise, and the other witness says that the murder happened after sunrise, you know for sure that they're lying. They're not talking about the same case. So they're no longer witnesses. Obviously. What are you coming to teach me? Obviously, they're liars, or they're not talking about the same case. Even if someone said it happened before sunrise, the other one said it happened during sunrise, while the sun was rising. Then you know that they're not a set of witnesses. Obviously. Because you can't make a mistake. Before sunrise, it's dark, and the sunrise, when the sun rises, it's starting to get light. So he says, no, I would think, they're both talking about the same incident. When he says, while sunrise, he made a mistake. He thought it was the beginning of sunrise because he saw the sun's rays. He just saw some rays.
Already past the crack of dawn.
No, the dawn is a lot before sunrise.
Seems like an easy mistake.
No, dawn is not a time that you can tell. Dawn, you can't really see anything. Dawn is more of a halachic time than reality. In the newspapers, they'll tell you sunrise to sunset because that's something you can distinguish. Dawn is not, you're not going to find dawn in the newspapers because dawn, you can't really tell dawn. Dawn, the text says, is an hour and a half before sunrise. It's still dark. What's dawn? When dawn? What dawn? It's not something that's detectable. It's more like a halachic conceptual idea. The sun is not rising. Somewhere, something starting to get somewhat light, but what exactly is the time, the moment when dawn begins? It's not exactly easily detectable. So, but here, sunrise, a minute before sunrise, he thought he saw some rays, and he thought already he says sunrise, but really it means the same thing. It was still at night. So he says, no. Since he says sunrise, he means when the sun is rising, and he said before sunrise, and therefore they're not a kosher witness. We'll stop right here. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day.